Welcome to another episode of Sanford Says. My name is Lisa Holder, and I am the Communications Officer for the City of Sanford. I have a very special guest with me today, Tammy Agnini. Tammy is a lifelong resident of Sanford. She's a realtor, wife, a mom, and she's also the chair of the city's Historic Preservation Board. And that's what today's topic is historic preservation. Welcome, Tammy.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
And so I failed to mention this last couple of podcasts, but folks, I have a face mask on. And so if I sound like I'm sort of under a blanket, I'm not, but I have a cotton face mask on. And so Tammy as well does. We're sitting at a table here, and so we want to make sure that we are safe and in this world of COVID-19. So I just thought I'd mention that. So let's jump right into historic preservation. Sanford's a wonderful historic city. Take it away, Tammy. What is historic preservation in Sanford, and why is it important?
All right. So historic preservation in Sanford, we are a historic city, as you mentioned. And in the late 1980s, it became obvious that we are losing a lot of our historic assets because they were getting torn down or they were deteriorating. So the city met with a renowned world-famous planner, and they enacted what was to be known as Schedule S, which is a city ordinance and its historic preservation codes. And they outlined an area within the city, which is the Downtown Historic Residential District. And that was the area of town that had the most contributing structures. And so that became the Sanford Historic District. There are actually two districts. One is residential and one is commercial.
That's right, our downtown area corridor as well. And so when you mention a certain amount of structures, so people listening understand, there are many beautiful historic homes in this city and of all different eras. However, in order to become a district, there is a certain criteria, right, Tammy?
That's correct. So they had to have a certain amount of structures that were, contributing in age and in character, making sure that it wasn't something that had been remodeled, quote, to the point of no longer even resembling its former self, but mostly age. And it really wasn't hard. We have such a beautifully defined district. It's not hard to see why it was obvious.
Right.
And also, in addition to historic district, we also have other historic neighborhoods that are amazing as well. They haven't necessarily been outlined or defined or put under a city ordinance, but we have Georgetown, Goldsboro, Stanlanta, Rose Court, Mayfair, which is also sometimes known as Marvania, which is another part of it. On the other side of Mellonville, we have a lot of beautiful historic neighborhoods that I always like to call out, as a realtor, people want historic homes. I always make sure that I'm ready to show them all that Sanford has to offer,
right?
Not just the district.
Tammy, I was driving around in the area off of 46, right before Mayfair. To the right, there's a community there because I still like to look on Zillow just because I want to see what's out there, even though my husband's like, you live in a house here. We just bought it 3 years ago.
It's like a habit you can't stop.
Right? So I drove in this neighborhood and I saw some really cool looking like mid-century modern homes that with really neat architecture that I never expected to see in this area of Sanford. But it seems like they're all over the place with all different styles, all different eras, right?
Like, it's funny you mentioned mid-century modern because that is a style that is really coming into its own based on its age. They use 50 years to decide if it's something's historic, which is funny because a lot of folks, in the older generations are like, that can't be historic. That's a house I grew up in, or the house is the same age as I am.
Yeah.
But it actually is. And that's a structure type of architecture that's becoming more appreciated now, especially by people in younger generations. They really like, the clean lines, the great design, the simplicity of it. So there's a lot of, it's interesting that historic properties they're growing as we get older.
Yes, and that Sanford has such a variety. I think there's some type of style of housing for all tastes, right? We have new, we have the Spanish Mediterranean, we have what do they call those in the historic district? There's a name for that, aren't there? Isn't there
we have Victorian, we have prairie style, four square, frame vernacular. That's a style that's pretty prevalent in our district.
Those small cottage homes,
bungalows.
That's the word I'm looking for. Yeah, it's just wonderful, and I enjoy walking my dog in that area downtown. I do, because then that's how we're neighbors, so to speak. And so I met Tammy on my dog walk, and she was listening to something, and I said, "Hey, Tammy, hi," and she's like, "I'm listening to a podcast."
I was getting ready to go on a run, and I said, "Oh, I'm just standing here on the corner randomly, like scrolling, looking for a podcast to listen to," and you walked by, and I was like, "Hey, you have a podcast."
Yeah, so that's how
I really enjoy it.
Tammy's here, and we're so happy that you're here to share some information, some history about historic preservation in general in Sanford, since we are such a lovely historic city. And so it's important because of what are the reasons that we're doing. Like, it's important that the city has created the Historic Preservation Board so that you can sort of guide people through this Schedule S.
It's totally our identity as a city. I mean, it's what makes Sanford stand out and what makes it such a special place. It's just, it's not like anywhere else.
Yeah, no, it's truly not.
And sometimes you need these protections to keep it that way.
It's preserving authenticity, which
absolutely.
That's it. Yeah, it's just wonderful. And so, speaking of that, preserving and authenticity, I'm sure that relates to property values, right?
Absolutely.
And so, I know David Johnson had come out and spoken to the Historic Trust at one time. Can you share a little bit more about that, property values?
Yeah, definitely. We love David Johnson. He came and spoke to the Historic Trust, which, for those who are listening, that's the nonprofit organization. It's separate from the city board, and they do a lot of great stuff here in Sanford too. Like, they put on the historic tour of homes at Christmas time and during the holidays, and they do a ton. He came and spoke to them as a group. He came and spoke to us the year before during May Preservation Month. And one of the things I wanted to get him to say on the record, he's very supportive of historic preservation. He actually showed us with charts and graphs and all kinds of data that the historic district property values remain high, and they remain 25% higher than the rest of the city. And as far as like just staying high, even during the recession, the time of the crash, I mean, the historic people, and I see it when I'm selling real estate. People are like, "No, I have to be in the district."
Yeah.
I'm like, "You don't have to be in the district." Like, let me show you some other amazing neighborhoods too. But they want that they want that protection. Yeah. They want to know that their property values are going to remain high because there's rules in place that, keep it like it is.
Yes, that is definitely true. And it's sort of like an HOA, but it's not, but still,
Totally not as crazy as HOA.
Oh, yeah. Oops. Okay.
I mean, some people might disagree with me when they get told no. It's hard. It's really hard. But
yeah, I would imagine that it takes time, right? The process of like Schedule S, and we have a staff member here, of course, our historic preservation planner, Julie Schofield, who's here with all of the information as the go-between, right? The staff liaison to the board. She's
wonderful. She's full of information. And I like to say Julie's job is, she does her job great, but one of the things that I like about her is that she tries to help you get to yes. So if you bring her an idea, she's like, well, that's really prohibited by Schedule S, but here's what you could do instead.
Yeah.
And of course, if you want to do something that's not clearly defined in Schedule S, you would then come before the board.
Okay.
So usually, she prepares a staff report, and then as a board, we're 5 members of the community who have different backgrounds. We have city planners, we have real estate professional, we have retired folks who have had experience renovating homes in their, that they've done, that they own personally.
Yes.
We've had contractors, attorneys, all kinds of backgrounds. And then, we just look at the information and decide based on the facts in front of us.
And so how can people get involved? You said about about the board meetings and things like that. Is there a way that people can get involved, and if they're interested in historic preservation and just following what's happening here?
Definitely. Yeah, I would say the first thing to do would be, go to a Stanford Historic Trust meeting. Those are open to the public, as our meetings are as well, of course. And then that's something anyone can join. If you're interested in joining my city board that I am the chair of, you could apply periodically. We have openings. People's terms expire. The term limits are 4 years. You can reapply and be reappointed. We're all appointed by the city commission. So either somebody their term would expire, or they would step down or not be reappointed for any reason. There would be an opening, and then you could apply that way. Once you apply, the city clerk calls out for applications periodically when we have an opening.
Right.
You would apply and go through the process of interviewing with the commissioners, and then they take a vote during a public commission meeting.
Okay. All right.
Our meetings are the third Wednesday of each month, and we do meet every month usually.
Okay.
So, and that's open to the public, and I would love for anyone who's interested in learning more to come and just sit in the audience and listen. We offer opportunities for public comment during the meeting as well. So there's lots of opportunities for folks to come and get involved, learn and listen, and we would love it.
Yeah, and in terms of educating the community about historic preservation, at the staff level, I'm sure we can promote and do things about the city of Sanford as a whole, because we are a wonderful historic city and we value our architecture, the residents that live in these districts, our commercial historic district as well. Because speaking of that, there's some really neat downtown buildings that make downtown. If you think about it, we have a lot of film location scouts coming into Sanford because of our backdrop and our buildings, and so it's just wonderful, don't you think?
I love it. One of my first experiences as a child one of my memories was watching them film. They filmed a movie right next door to my house growing up on Palmetto. Not in the district, just south of it. They filmed Wilder Napalm, which was a flop.
Okay, there's another one, right? Another movie.
But they filmed My Girl, which was not a flop, and it was a great movie. But some of my classmates got to meet Macaulay Culkin. Really? That was down on Magnolia in the district. But Wilder Napalm, they literally filmed next door to my house, and I got to meet Deborah Winger and Dennis Quaid, Arliss Howard, all these stars of the early 90s, and it was incredible.
Yeah, I would say the 80s, actually.
Or 80s. I guess it was, I think the movie was in 1992.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So but it was pretty cool. They're like, don't talk to them. I was like, I'm going over there.
That's really cool. Piece of history there.
And they filmed a commercial at my girlfriend's house right down the street on Magnolia just a couple weeks ago. Yeah. They filmed a really cool commercial. They were there for 2 days.
And I do believe that we had the Right Stuff commercial group or TV series.
That was filmed at another friend of mine's house.
Yeah,
Mid-Century.
In Mid-Century. And then I know also that in another home, that Walt Disney movie about Walt Disney was filmed in a home in Sanford as well.
See, I hadn't heard about that one. That's really cool.
Yeah, so,
very popular with film scouts.
It is definitely very popular with film scouts. So is there myth busting? Anything? I have this on my list. I'm like, myth busting.
Myth busting. Well, I hear a lot of things like people say to me if they don't live in the district, they say, oh, I would never live in the district because it's so strict. And I'm like, it's really not. But we don't see a lot of citizens that are coming in trying to do something crazy. Well, I shouldn't say citizens, residents.
Yeah.
We sometimes have to come down on house flippers or people that don't live in our community.
Okay.
They come in, they want to do a quick flip, they buy a house in the district. Oftentimes they say they didn't know. Education is really important for everyone,
I agree.
Then they get a big stop work order, and code enforcement is someone we work with. Monica in code enforcement. She's wonderful. She's a great partner to us. Code enforcement has always been a great partner because they come in and if they see something, they can stop it. Like if someone was, God forbid, tearing down a house.
Okay.
Or ripping the back of the house off or doing something, really crazy.
Yeah.
We would be able to.
So a flipping is not allowed? Is that?
Oh, no, it is. But I guess I should explain that real estate term. People who come in and buy a house quickly and then they just want to do like a really quick renovation and then sell it fast.
Okay.
And then oftentimes, they are doing things that may not be allowed under Schedule S.
Gotcha. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
So we don't want that.
But we're not, we're not, so I get on a tangent, but we're not horribly strict. There are a set of rules. But we have a staff member who is there to work with them and help them navigate everything. And another myth is that, we're mean. We're not mean.
Oh, come on, really?
We're nice.
Can't you tell, guys?
Yeah, but it is hard, though, being the chair of that board. My job is just pretty much to run the meetings, and I do get to vote, of course. But sometimes you have a neighbor or a friend who is in front of you and you have to vote no, and it's painful because it's not personal at all. But,
Right.
we're up there, we're citizens, we've volunteered, and we just are trying to do the best thing for our community. And that can be tough. That's probably the hardest part
Right.
about being on it is,
You have to do what you're there for, what you've been
Yeah.
tasked to do, and that's to provide real, true answers and go by the code, and so the S code. So, you and the board are doing a wonderful job. We have a wonderful historic district. It's just simply lovely. I mean, if anyone out there, if you don't even live in Sanford, just drive through that
Yeah.
area, come down, park your car. There's many small little city parks like Park on Park, Centennial Park, and
It's
just
the best.
walk the neighborhood. When that neighborhood is dressed up during the Christmas time and tour of homes, it's like you're in a Norman Rockwell just movie or magazine or whatever. It's just wonderful. And
Yeah,
so
I love it so much. That's why it's important to me to do this.
Right.
Even though it's hard sometimes.
certainly.
I love our community so much. I grew up here. I'm raising my children here, and on the same street I grew up on. Even it's crazy.
Yeah,
I didn't get very far in life.
Yeah.
10 blocks.
no, but obviously something has kept you
Yeah.
here,
And I just absolutely love it. It's special. It's different, and you just can't find it anywhere else. And
no, you can't.
sometimes you have to step up and try to help keep it going.
Yeah.
I think our city does a great job at that, though. I mean, we have, like you said, beautiful city parks. City of Sanford has been a great partner with historic preservation and just supporting us, and
Yeah.
it's been good.
So, is there any kind of projects coming up that I guess, that you can share, maybe, or would that be
Well, the big one, of course, is Heritage Park.
right?
And that's, where we have a couple of blocks on the lakefront. Only one of those blocks falls into the district.
Okay.
So, but we have the developer who is from South Florida. They are very well versed in historic preservation, and that's why they were selected for this project, to build something that isn't necessarily going to look faux historic. Like it was, like, I don't know how to describe it, like Disneyfied or anything.
Right.
But something that's really going to fit in and blend well with the surrounding district,
Right.
and
Now-
integrate seamlessly.
Would your board has to approve that plan before it goes to the city commission, the design and all of that? Okay, so that's a heavy
Yeah.
responsibility.
It
Yeah.
is. It
Yeah.
is. We've gone through a few layers of it already because this project's been in the works for probably 4 or 5 years now.
Mm-hmm.
So, luckily we work well with the developer, and we think that he has a good vision. And
Yeah, and there's more information about Heritage Park on the city website too. And
Mm-hmm.
we just posted something, an update, some renderings actually on a Facebook page like a couple of weeks ago, if anybody was interested in finding out more about that. But is there anything else, Tammy, that you'd like to say? You've been a delight. Is there anything else that you'd like to say about
thank
what
you.
what your role is or historic preservation?
no,
In
I just
general?
think that I'd like to say, call to action. Anyone who's interested in learning more, call me, get in touch with me, come to a meeting. Always here to answer questions. I mean, people are not shy to knock on my door if they have something to say about historic preservation, or if they think something's going wrong with it.
Yeah.
They usually tell me, but I'm always open to hearing people's feedback and ideas. And
Yeah. Now,
see.
where did you have a history in historic preservation that you just said, I'd like to do this?
No, I
And-
just always, growing up here, I loved old houses. I grew up in what is now called a mid-century modern home that was built in 1958.
Okay.
And I was always lusting after old houses. And my mom raised me. She always took me shopping at antique stores. And so I love old movies. And I love that, and I love history. And I just think it's great. So
Yeah.
gravitated toward, when I was old enough to buy my own house. My first house was in 1925, Spanish Mediterranean style, also in Elton J. Moten, not in the district. So I was South Magnolia, so just south of the district.
Yeah.
And we renovated that and sold it, and we just
good
kind of outgrew it.
experience.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a 2-bedroom, 1 bath.
Yeah.
And we were going to move again. My husband was like, I don't want another old house. And my husband has a company that renovates and remodels and does historic wood window
Okay.
remaking and fixing. And I'm like flubbing this description. Palmetto Restorations.
He's gonna listen to
Custom
this.
millwork. No. I mean, he can do everything. Like, how do I just still him?
Yeah.
But he is a jack of all trades, but he can do anything with building and fixing. So I'm like, this is an asset. You know, I married him on purpose.
That helps.
So he was like, well, if we're going to move, I said, I really want another old house, bigger house, because we had 2 kids at that point. And I said, I want to move to a bigger house in the historic district. And he said, no, well, only if it has this feature, that feature, and this feature. Basically, Cinderella, if you can find this unicorn, we'll do it. So I found the unicorn. It was not for sale. I convinced them to sell it to us.
Oh, really? Wow.
And he couldn't refuse it. I found it. So, and he loves it now. And we, we're very happy there.
It's really great. And
it's a work in progress.
Just say that in general, like, you can walk from your home to the waterfront and to downtown. So it's that walkable, feature.
Very
of living,
walkable.
Not only in the historic district, but I mean, quite frankly, if you're fit, you could probably walk a good 18 blocks
Oh, for sure.
20 blocks, even
sure.
from 25th Street.
It's
down.
only about a mile and a half from 25th Street, and it's all downhill going to the lake.
Okay.
Because of course Sanford slopes north.
Is that what it is? Okay. But yeah. So it's really
in
wonderful.
the sense of community. I mean, that's another thing that's so special about our neighborhood is that, and that's why people want to buy in, it's the community. It's the people. People are on their porches, they're waving, they're friendly, they look out for each other. And, it's very similar to how people talk about, in the olden days. Well, I still think we have that in that neighborhood. Right. It's like it was when I was growing up. And my kids can go over to their best friend's house a block away and they all go to the same school. And it's a wonderful neighborhood community of people that care about each other and they look out for one another.
Yeah.
And
it is.
It's just something that I think is priceless.
Yeah. And I think that's true of all of Sanford's smaller enclaves of homes, I think, and communities. It's just something about...
that's a Sanford thing.
Yeah.
It's not just historic district, it's Sanford.
It is. It really is. So that's really great information, Tammy. Anything else?
No, I think we covered it.
Come to the meeting. You'll see Tammy. She's the chair of the Historic Preservation Board for the City of Sanford. Like Tammy said, there's public comment as well. You can go to the website and read up about historic preservation also, and it's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
It's been a pleasure, Tammy. So now when you're out on your walks or whatever, you can play Sanford Says and listen to your own podcast.
Yes, one of my favorite podcasts.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is Lisa Holder, Communications Officer for the City of Sanford. You've been listening to Sanford Says, and you could find this podcast wherever you subscribe today, and as well on the city website at sanfordfl.gov. Thanks again for listening. We'll catch you next time. Be well.